Hi, welcome once again to another episode of Just Say. We're here to take you on a 1-hour ride of the best conversation on television. This week has been a crazy one for us as something has taken one of us away from this table every day this week. If you have good eyes and you're a devoted fan, then I'm sure you can figure out who's missing today before we go on the wide frame.
Let me help you. It wasn't me. Suspect sits beside me and is the first to call me out on anything.
I mean, well, technically, I also call you out. And I sit beside you, so...
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Well, it's also not me, because Suspect is my boss, and if you still don't know who it is, then don't bother. It's totally... Did I get the accent?
Yeah.
Well, she had a very important errand to run, wearing her boss lady, management, madam director cap. But not to worry, we've got you covered. I will put them in check, you know, if they're talking or speaking over each other. Like, ladies, we gotta go. But anyways, tomorrow is going to be one of the big reunions with the very special guest for you. But let's start the show already. At least tomorrow, everybody will be complete.
Yeah. See, I'm a lawyer by profession, and one thing I will tell anyone for free is this. Always listen to your lawyer's advice. If you haven't heard, Speed Darlington was rearrested yesterday in Owerri. This seems to be in connection to his ongoing case of defamation brought against him by Burna Boy. Darlington was reportedly arrested for jumping bail. However, a statement released by his legal team says that he did not miss his bail, but only because of
he did miss
his bail, but only for a medical emergency, and that he was going to report himself back to court, and that he was back to court in Abuja, but still not after his performance in Owerri. Here's what the statement had to say. Please listen. He did say something. We don't have it yet, but I am just wondering that a lot of people don't know that if they hold you for defamation, if one person is serious about you and they are willing to stay from beginning till the end of it, you will learn your lesson. And anytime anybody is speaking ill, you will run 360.
And I remember that. I think his lawyer also came out to say that he should be careful what he says online. Not just him. He was saying everyone has to be careful what they say because you don't know what can be used against you. But does he listen? Absolutely not.
He doesn't. No. He's even pushed. And I think he's also being encouraged by fastest fingers on social media. Those ones who are saying, yo, go Speedy, go Speedy, go. Are you going with him now to are you going with him? Were you there when he was rearrested? And I think people we as Nigerians, we today overdo.
Sentimental.
Speed Darlington has ridden on this fame. He has ridden on this fame of, he's the one. In fact, I think he has a song.
People had a song.
Baby oil or something.
Yeah.
And he's written on that thing. Guys, listen, there has to be a point where you say enough is enough. Enough is enough. And not because you have people encouraging you wildly on social media, then you now decide to be mad.
And Nigerians need to stop being overly sentimental. I'm very sure if it wasn't Speed Darlington and it was a regular person, they would have said, Burna Boy is doing too much because you're an influencer, because you're a celebrity. Yeah. But now, because Speed Darlington is also in the spotlight, we've seen situations where someone will just sit down and insult another person, and then when they take action, you'll be like, you are not God, you can't be playing God. And sometimes some of these celebrities, they don't even go that length. They just
imagine if Nathaniel Bassey followed that thing. Do you know the implication of what he said?
Now you've said this, if we want to chronicle everything like this that has happened from January this year.
A lot of people will be in jail cooking beans.
Honestly.
And they'll make sure that beans is hard.
Honestly speaking. It's not funny. We can laugh about it all we want. It can trend as much as it can on social media, but it does not take away the fact. Cyberbullying, you cannot go on because you feel you have a page and it's my page. Anything I post, it's me that's putting my ear. Now get time. You know we do that thing. Now you get time. Is it your page? It's your page. Yes, it's your page.
But this one now, people know that it's not just about what you saying it because it's your page. You are defaming
Speed Darlington did not
someone.
want blow since he has always
Yeah.
wanted to blow. He has, and he
And he
seems
can
like
blow
he
in
has-
prison. At least when he comes out, maybe he will give us fella solidarity.
It seems like
and he will
he-
go right back.
But do you ladies even think that this is intentional? Because beginning to look, I mean, after all the warnings, you still go ahead to run your mouth. It's beginning to look like maybe...
Yeah, but he's getting numbers. What do you
Exactly.
mean?
So-
he's getting numbers.
Yes, that's
and
the
his
sad
music
truth.
is, people will listen to the song out of, let me even hear what he said about.
Can he even sing, first of all? Or you're just, is this part of also his lawyers advising him, or social media experts advising him, okay, let's run with the trend, let's push the trend further. Let's release the song, let's call it Baby.
But some
Or let's-
lawyers just
because,
want
listen, you're
fame
getting
too.
traction, you're trending because of this. Probably you're trending on all the social media
Do you know how
platforms.
many
So
defense
let's keep pushing
lawyers
it.
are hated by all? They hate them a lot because they feel as if you're defending criminals. But everybody has a right to representation. So even when you've done bad, you will still find representation. So whether you win or not, the only thing a lawyer can offer you is their best service possible.
Why are you looking so funny? I've just been looking at...
You know,
I've been looking at the
God,
hair.
It's a mistake.
dear viewers, this is what you get when you bless me, when you give me money randomly. Somebody open a GoFundMe, just say Lola's Beauty Basket. For her to be looking like this every
Beauty
day.
basket.
Lola's Beauty Basket.
Yes.
I like the name.
Yeah. Lola's
Yeah.
Beauty Basket,
Where
and
did it
it's not
come
for
from?
anything
Lola's Beauty
except
Basket.
to buy things that beautify
I don't
our
think
beautiful
people will
Lola.
go fund that.
Why wouldn't they go fund that? When Kora Obidi got funding for her marital case law, or money for her lawyers, why shouldn't I get?
You have a point.
Don't I deserve it?
You have a
Oh, you
point.
do, actually.
Yeah.
Anyways, well, I mean, I think that we're more excited about the conversation we are about to show you than the conversation we've been having. So yesterday we promised you a conversation that we couldn't bring to you due to a live event in Abuja. It's one of those moments where, as Tolu would say, if she were here, we're a news station first. But not to worry, after this quick break, we'll dive into an important discussion on the Nigerian child and the fight for a better future.
Oh, yes.
Who better to lead the conversation than Betty Abah? Betty is better to lead the conversation. A passionate advocate for women and children's rights and the founder of See Hope Nigeria. So don't go anywhere. The conversation just got started.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is just Siri, and you can be a part of the conversation via our social media handle or platforms at News Central Television. The future of Nigeria rests in the hands of its children, yet many continue to suffer from poor health, lack of education, and exposure to violence and exploitation. Now, despite the existence of laws like the Child Rights Act, which are meant to protect children, millions of Nigerian children are still denied their basic rights. As the backbone of our nation's future, the well-being of our children is a reflection of our collective progress and our collective challenges as well. And this is a conversation that matters not just for today, but for generations to come. So today we are joined by Betty Abah, a leading advocate for women and children's rights and the founder of See Hope Nigeria. Let's look at the challenges Nigerian children face and why protective laws are not being fully implemented. As a nation, it's time to confront these issues head-on and demand that the rights of every child are not just written into law, but also actively upheld. So, Betty, welcome to Just Theory.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show, Betty.
Thank you.
So before we came live on the show, Betty and us, we were having conversations about the state of the alarmingly deteriorating state of things in Nigeria with regards to the Nigerian child. And it's no longer news that the children's health in Nigeria remains a major concern. There's high rates of malnutrition, there's infant mortality, and everything else in between. So despite commitments under the Sustainable Development Goals, Nigeria still struggles to feed its children and ensure they have adequate nutrition to grow well. So let's start by laying this foundation as the state of Nigerian children in terms of health, because before the break, we were talking about what we talked about 2 days ago on the show, or yesterday on the show, about children being puffed up in terms of nutrition. And we criticized the fact that NAFDAC wasn't doing anything tangible. So let's stay with children's health to start with. What's the state of affairs with children's health in Nigeria?
I think generally, as with every other thing, there's a failure in terms of accountability. There is widespread ignorance. And the people that are supposed to be in position to ensure regulation are not taking their job seriously. And people that are violating the rights of children, that are doing things they should not do, also feel that they can always get away with it. There are basically no consequences. So it's just a state of lawlessness. So it affects every aspect of our national life, of our private life, every institution. And so the children, women and children generally, especially children, are the receiving end of the failure of our society, the institutional failures.
It is worrisome because
I don't understand why someone who advertise that kind of a thing. You are feeding children, obviously, with some steroids.
That's where I was going.
And then you come out to advertise it. And there's no reason why such a person shouldn't have been arrested by NAFDAC, if indeed NAFDAC knows his job.
Yeah.
Well, we now know that, they've taken down the posts on social media.
But that's not enough.
That's not enough.
Given the furor that came up from it, I would have expected by now to be some kind of statement from NAFDAC in terms of identifying the person and telling us they're pursuing it's some sort of investigation. Just, I think the other day we also spoke about the school lunch in Akwa Ibom, the video of what the children were being fed. So when you look at it from different sides of the conversation, you see that there is a health conversation that's to be had with Nigerian children, but there's also an educational conversation as well, Betty. We're looking at the numbers now. The UNICEF, that's the United Nations Agency for Children, says that 10.2 million children of primary school age in Nigeria are out of school, and another 8.1 million children of junior secondary school age are also out of school. Now, this crisis is compounded by increasing attacks on schools, with 19 documented incidences in 2022 and 2023, leading to the closure of 113 schools in Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe states due to insecurity. So these are the stark realities that many children across the country are facing, and it's also a call for urgent action as well. Why do we have so many children out of school in Nigeria? We've given the conversation around insecurity, but it's not just an insecurity conversation when it comes to out of school children in the country.
Okay, basically I'll pin it down to two factors. First is poverty. Poverty. I think in this age, most parents would want their children to be in school, even the ultra poor, because they've seen the impacts of their lack of education, the opportunities they've missed. So naturally, they want their children to be in school, but the resources are mostly not there. And then the failure of governance, because universal basic education is supposed to be free. And government is supposed to make sure they make all resources available to make sure children are in school. Just in Lagos here, we've been able to put about in the last 1 year and a half, been able to put about, I think about 120 children from 2 communities around the area here. About 95% of those children came from a particular community in Benue State. They were trafficked to come and hawk in Lagos. So you see them along Agidingbi here, granules, pawpaw, everything.
Yes.
And majority of them are not in school. And then the people who bring them are also poor people living in one room, face me and face you, around the area. So that made it that become like a system. They go to the villages and bring them who want to stay in Lagos because they eat better compared to their village. So if we're to work with NAPTIP, if NAPTIP is even effective in that sense, to say, okay, let's rescue the children and take them back to their villages. They're going to come back in the next 1 week. So what we decided to do was to come to a middle point with their guardians, the people that brought them, and say, these children cannot go to hawk in the morning. They have to go to school. And then after school, they can hawk. But they have to remain in school. The thing is, they just have to remain in school. So that's what we've been doing. And by September, we're going to enroll more children in school. But what about the thousands and thousands of others? So it's basically poverty. It's basically poverty. You have NAPTIP there that's supposed to ensure that there's no trafficking, but they're just not doing their work. And then the parents are so, handicapped. You don't have any means of livelihood, and then you have 10, 12 children. So they just send them to the cities to work as house help. And in the course of that, there's a lot of rights violation. So it's a long story. It's a lot of, it's a serious thing.
Okay, so talking about thousands and thousands of others, the conversation on impoverished children and children out of school usually wears the northern face, but it's not just a northern problem, and we know that. So what do the numbers look like for states like Lagos, for example?
Lagos, I'm sure Lagos probably has the highest number of out of school children. And in the last couple of years, they've tried to come up with a project they call Project Zero, trying to ensure that children are enrolled in school, trying to give them the encouragement. And Lagos likes to say to everyone that the education is free, primary, secondary school education. But it's actually not totally free, because you've had to enroll children in school, and then you have to pay for school uniform, you have to pay for this, you have to pay one kind of levy or the other. I have a family, because our organization works mostly with children and families in what you call slum communities, informal settlements. So we work with, one of the communities we work with is around the Ojota. And about a week ago, we had to pay for one of the children to get back to school. He had not been in school this time because the school required him to pay 75,000 naira. And there are two of them. So we had to pay for one, because I think he's going to SS3 or so. The other one is supposed to be in SS1. Both of them had not been in school prior to when we paid for this one to be in school. I think it's Okwebi Grammar School or something like that. And the school insisted that they want to make uniform for the children, which of course is at a higher rate. So if you want children, if you're interested in children being in school and in school retention, why would you make things difficult for their parents? Why would school be about making profit? It should be about ensuring that these children are in school. Because the more out-of-school children we have, the more dangerous it is for the society. Not just for those children, but for everyone. Because you cannot even predict the consequences, the ultimate consequences. So Lagos State, by the books, they're trying to encourage education, but in reality, it's extremely hard. And they're not following up to ensure that, are these children really in school? What is the rate of school retention? So the policies are there and all of that, but the fact is that many parents cannot afford to have their children in school anymore, and the schools are not making it any easy for them.
But you know, it's interesting that you say this, because apart from children being in school, there's also the issue of quality education. What's the guarantee that all these students who are being in school are getting quality education? Just which day did we talk on Jasiri Expo? We saw the story on that Presbyterian school in Akwa Ibom, giving these children, I mean, he was just eating a bar with water.
And colored water.
And colored water, that's what it was. So if we're looking at quality of education, let's take a look at the statistics in trying to paint a picture of how, you know, this looks for the Nigerian child and the future. So we see that research says 74% of students or children between the ages of 7 and 14 lack basic reading skills. Now that is a staggeringly high figure. 74 in some universities or something, that's an A. So if we are painting a picture of how the Nigerian child, how the future looks for or the present and the future looks for the Nigerian child, it is bleak. What do we see? What can we see?
It's just the fact that everything, the quality of everything in every sector has diminished. So education is just one of it. And it's just people that have the means that can afford to put their children in schools where at least the quality is something that you can write home about. Most of the public schools are nothing to write home about.
Some private schools also are nothing to write home about. Tolu interviews, she's in a position where she conducts interviews. The things she has heard, that's conversation.
The people who come before me and say they want to apply for a job, I'm like, how did we get you to this point and we've put you into the job market?
I think it was on Monday, I put on my Facebook page the fact that I'm having issues with young people because they write everything in small letter. And then they'll say Auntie Betty and they write my name in small letter. I said, no, you cannot write my name in small letter.
And
so
they wonder why you're being particular.
Like I don't know if it's deliberate or they just don't know the difference between
capitalization and proper nouns.
I mean, it's just terrible. I had a student from, I just have to mention it because it's so concerning for me, University of Ibadan, who was carrying out her PhD thesis. Yes, and then she wanted to interview me, wanted to send questionnaires and all that. And the letter she wrote me, I wrote back, and then I was correcting it line by line. I said, no, your English is so bad, I don't understand. Then she wrote back and said, oh, it's because she was in a hurry. And then the second letter was worse than the first.
No.
And this was a PhD student from the Premier University. And I said, no. It's just, I mean, it's depressing. Yes.
Oh, no.
It's depressing.
So, you know, when Catherine, see, I was 74% between 7 and 14 lack basic reading and math skills. And so I want you to add, I'm going to add my next question and then look at it. You touched a bit about the impacts for them and the society, but I want us to widen that because we've seen rising insecurity and violence across the country. Children are being impacted in horrific ways. How does exposure to violence and instability impact children? And then, of course, lead to a greater impact for society. These children who can't read at 17 and 14, who don't have basic math skills, what's the long-term, lifelong impact for them and then our society as well?
It's basically a generation that cannot compete at the global level.
Wow.
Because there's no competence. You go abroad and then you see children, I mean young people, they are in the library. I was schooling in England and 11 p.m. as I'm leaving the library, students are still there reading, and they're mostly white kids, very focused. And I said, in Africa, when are we going to catch up with the rest of the world? These are people that have the resources, even if they don't work for the rest of their life, they are guaranteed pension. Yet they are working their heads off. From a very young age, at 7 a.m., you see children, young children like 7 years, 10 years, they are going to school in line, and they're so organized. When are we going to catch up? And back here, the biggest role models we have in Nigeria are people that are doing this BBL or something. And
those are influencers.
And they are the people influencing these young people. They are distracted by the internet. They are distracted by their phones. And there is no attention to mental development. So who are the people that are going to be the leaders of tomorrow? So we really have to make it like a conscious decision. We have to be decisive about the need to change the models, the role models that the young people look up to. We have to impress on them the need for scholarship. Because you're not going to go anywhere. I know that in Nigeria, ethnicity plays a very big role. So you think, okay, because my uncle is this, I have people in this sector, they're going to find me jobs. But you're just going to play at local level. You're not going to be able to break through to the international level because the world will not have any patience for you, for incompetence. They will not. They will not. We just have to have like a rethink. Who are the people that are role models for young people? Right now, they are not the people. So when someone, I think I read this morning, or was it yesterday? The best graduating student from Uniben was given 5,000 naira.
Yes, Betty, let's not go down.
In engineering, I saw his post, and he was thanking the school. I'm sure he was doing it tongue in cheek. And then you have Big Brother Africa. You just go in there, and then you do rubbish. At the end of the day, you are giving 100 million. I mean, does it make any sense? How does that?
A high five.
I mean, how does that encourage people? When we criticize it, we look like village people. As if we don't know anything. We don't know the trend. We don't know what's going on. At the end of the day, it does not help to deepen the intellect, the character, the competence of our young people.
So you're saying that these distractions, like and the entertainment shows and reality shows that flood our timelines and TV screens and the digital media, do you think we're putting the cart before the horse, and we're concentrating on the wrong things, which now
prioritizing the wrong things. We're prioritizing the wrong things. And these are impressionable young people. We have to make sure they're following the correct trend. They are modeling their lives after the right people and not the wrong people, because it will have implications, very strong implications at the end of the day.
So it's like we want to divert a little bit because I'm worried about, yes, I see all of that and I agree, but in a child's life, in any child's life, their parent or their guardian is always the first role model. Is always the first and should be the most important and critical role model, I beg your pardon. But what we've also found is that there's a breakdown of Nigerian societal norms and cultures and values. Even though some of the cultural aspects of it we can talk about need adjustments and updating, but the core values of what makes us a society, that makes us trustworthy people, that makes us people that we can all move forward with. We can see ourselves as Nigerian, not devolving to tribes and states first. Those are the things that our young people are inheriting. They're inheriting it also from the parents as well.
Because the parents themselves are distracted. And then to a large extent, there's an issue with family values. We have young people, when they're coming to work. There was someone we had to sack last year because each time she comes to the office, I'll sack her and then bring her back again. but she's from one of the communities, and I really, really wanted to mentor her and ensure she goes to school. But each time she comes to the office, things will start missing. She will steal everything in sight. And that, I believe it has some fundamental link. It has to do with her family value. Why would you do that? So,
and you're some that kind of person, you might ask her, she says, I don't know why I do it. Like,
so, yeah, we really have to emphasize on family values. We really have to emphasize.
Still talking about the children, we know that generally there's mostly a gendered aspect to certain things. Does the same thing apply to children? Are there specific challenges that boys face versus what girls face? And are there like tailored mechanisms that can be adopted to tackle both challenges?
Yes. I think in recent time we've had conversations about people have accused us, activists, that we're focusing too much on the girl child to the detriment of the boys. I agree that there has to be some focus on the boy child as to how we can ensure that they develop into positive masculinity. Yeah. You have boys from homes where domestic violence is very, very prevalent, and it's very, 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 there's a high possibility that they'll become violent partners. So there has to be conscious mentorship of the boys as well, positive masculinity. I agree that there's a lot of focus on girls. And then earlier, I know we were speaking about people who develop this something syndrome, Stockholm syndrome.
Stockholm
syndrome, yes, who go back to their abusive partners. So there's need for us to focus on girls and ensure that we instill confidence in them and to, prime them to a state of mind where they don't care about societal stigmatization when it comes to issues about their relationship, with their issues around their safety, and when their lives are threatened as a result of intimate partner violence. And then there's also need to focus also on boys and mentor them towards positive masculinity, how not to be violent towards women. And then even there are also issues about how to inculcate in them, they need to be friendly to women around menstrual hygiene issues. Yes. Because many people are very squeamish, and so men mostly. And so you have to bring up boys to be positive and to be supportive in that sense. So I believe that the two sexes need attention equally.
It's interesting because, you know, when we tell our children that they are leaders of tomorrow, many Nigerian children, it's for many of them it's uncertain because does that tomorrow ever come? Will it ever come for them? And those who see tomorrow, that's uncertain. It's filled with danger and not promise. Now, the next question that Tolu has is about data. Tolu is our data.
But that'll be after the break.
But that will be after the break. We'll be right back. This is Just Serious. Stay with us.
In the heart of every city, in the corners of every community, stories are waiting to be told. Meet the women who redefine strength, resilience, and success. These are the women who turn challenges into triumphs and dreams into reality.
When you buy something and sell immediately, they are very able to turn over on it, can turn it over, so it's profitable.
While some may have formal education,
I have KSC. They're mocking. They say, how can you leave the banking job and start hawking food?
others may have had little or none. But they are skilled, resourceful, and unstoppable. Join us on a journey to witness the power of resourcefulness and determination. Discover their stories, their struggles, and their triumphs.
I started small with 2x2 shop, but we are able to expand.
Street Smart Women.
Thank you so much for staying with us. This is Jasiri. According to data, Nigeria is a country of the young, with almost half the entire 180 million plus population, some people say over 200 million, being young people, about 46% currently under the age of 15. Over 7 million babies are born each year, and each year more than 260,000 babies die at birth. This gives us the world's second highest national total in infant mortality. Infant mortality currently stands at 69 per 1,000 live births, while under fives, it rises to 128 Nigerian children under the age of 5 dying for every 1,000 live births. More than half of the under 5 deaths, about 64% of them, result from malaria, pneumonia, or diarrhea. And only around 18% of children aged 6 to 23 months are fed the minimum acceptable diet. And that's UNICEF data. A national survey from a few years ago found that 6 out of 10 children reported having suffered one or more forms of violence before reaching 18 years of age, with 70% of those experiencing multiple incidents of violence. Our guest today is Betty Abah. She's the founder of See Hope Nigeria and a women and children's rights advocate. Betty, when you look at the data that I read out, and I know with Nigeria, data can be very difficult oftentimes to be able to refresh. So we get data from 2 years ago. It's a desert, data desert sometimes. But when we look at the data, is there anything that shows us that we're making progress, that anything is getting better?
I don't think. I think the opposite is a case.
Getting worse.
Because of, yeah, it's getting worse, especially because of poverty and the state of our healthcare system. People are no longer, most people are no longer able to access quality medical care. And that's why you see many pregnant women going to prayer houses. It's like a last resort. And many of them die in the process when there are complications. So it's a terrible situation. About 2 years ago in our shelter, because I run a women's shelter in Lagos, we had, there was a case that was reported to us, and we quickly had to rescue the woman. She had given birth in one of the, no, she was in labor for like 2 or 3 days in one of the communities in Lagos, the coastal community after her papa.
2 or 3 days labor.
Enter the boat to get there. So the local midwife ran away because she couldn't cope with the situation. And so they called me and said, Betty, you just have to do something about this case. Then I got through to the local chief. And what he told me, I just could not, I couldn't get over it. Because as at the time I got through to him, the woman had been taken to a hospital. She had given birth, but they operated on her. There were complications. Because the doctor that came said I think because she had not gone through any antenatal, they assumed that she was carrying just one baby. When they opened her up, there were 2 babies. So they brought the baby out, and then she had no money to pay them, and then she developed complications. It was a very messy situation. She developed complications. And then the Oba told me, the ballet of the community told me, say, why I got into all this is because if she dies, it will take us to do a lot of rituals to be able to move her across the water, and I don't want to get into all that. It's so hectic for me.
Rituals to...
That was why he took her to the hospital, because she didn't want to be, involved in the hectic rituals of carrying her dead body. Yes, that was, he told me. He told her
that if she died there, they'd have to do rituals to be able to carry her across the water. That was why he carried her while she was still laboring 2-3 days.
So we had to, So we had to pay for, we paid her bills, the bills, and then we brought her to a hospital around Ogba here. They discovered she had developed very deep infection in her womb. I've forgotten the name of the infection now. And she had to stay 5 days in the hospital for them to be able to treat the infection. That was how, because she was almost dying. She was decaying, her womb was decaying.
Oh my goodness.
Because of the lack of care in that hospital. So that hospital at Ogba saved her life. And then she stayed in our shelter for some time with a baby, 2 boys. Is it 2 boys? Or a boy? I think 2 boys, So imagine people who are in, and this is Lagos. Yes. This is Lagos, the coastal community, but it's just within Lagos metropolis, around Apapa. So imagine people that live in very far away rural areas. And now that purchasing power is declining, people are having less and less access to money. Even the little one you have don't have any value, like little to no value. So how do people access medical care to stay alive?
Or keep their kids alive?
To keep their children alive. And people die, both mothers and their babies die completely avoidable deaths. A friend of mine told me, who lives in Australia, told me some years ago, and I couldn't get this out of my head. It's been like 20 years, and I couldn't get. He said, why do you think people abroad live longer? How do you come abroad and then you see old people, you see 90-year-old walking around, even driving. And then why is it that we have very few old people here? You think it's a miracle? It's a state of healthcare. Why do you think children don't die as much abroad like they die here? Are we caused? It's a state of healthcare. And when you think about one governor stealing trillion naira, you can imagine how much that can, how far that can go to build hospitals that will save people's lives, to provide healthcare, to build schools, to provide the resources to keep children in school. One person, I think the former Attorney General, Accountant General told, is it 82 billion naira? And those were the ones that had been traced, not the ones that had not been traced. I think those were the liquid cash. What about the ones in property and all of that? Just one person.
Didn't we talk about the governor of Ebonyi State who just found, to his shock, that 6 billion he has spent on primary healthcare centers.
And people are stealing the books, the register, and all those other things.
Are we not doing us? What's wrong with us?
It's just terrible. Sometimes it's just so depressing.
So I want to point out the Child Rights Act. Now, this act was passed to domesticate international conventions on child rights, but how many states have fully domesticated it? And what does the Child Rights Act do for Nigerian children? How can we ensure that it is enforced more effectively across all states?
Even most of the states in the south and the west have domesticated it. Just a few across the north because of the contentious issues of child marriage and all of that, the age of consent for marriage and all of that. But even those that have domesticated it, have those acts, has it been implemented? Is there any form of enforcement? Lagos is supposed to be like the trailblazer, and yet you have trafficked children all over Lagos. You have, I mean, thousands and tens of thousands of children out of school. Because one of the provisions of the Act, Child Rights Act 2003, which was domesticated by Lagos 2007, is that children should be in school. Not putting children in school has been criminalized. And yet we have thousands and thousands of out-of-school children across Lagos. And then you have sexual abuse. Like I said, I run a women's shelter. And then originally the shelter was set up around the COVID period because there was a scale-up
in domestic
violence, especially intimate partner violence. But a high number of people who've had coming into the shelter are teenagers who are working as domestic help and who have been abused by their madam's husband, sexually abused. And this is an ongoing pandemic or epidemic that most people don't talk about. And because these girls are economically disempowered, they're so vulnerable, most of the time they don't even speak out. And they continue, and the abuse can continue for years. And then you have girls who have been serially aborted, they had their babies, their pregnancies aborted, and they cannot speak out. A lot of violation of children's rights. And like Mandela would say, to know the soul of a society, it's about how they treat the children. So Nigeria is basically not a child-friendly country. And we really have to, admit that reality and see how we can sit back and change. We just have a paradigm shift to be a more child-friendly country and to itemize the different laws, the different issues and how they can be tackled. Child education, sexual abuse of children. Even some parents abuse their own children, and because they think, because they're so ignorant and so lawless, they think, okay, you are my child, I can do whatever I like to you. They don't know that those are government picking, and they can be jailed. So they don't even have that awareness. So awareness is another
key issue.
Like, we cannot talk about the Child's Rights Act without mentioning what happened in the north. Remember where the spotlight with the arraignment of children in and the Attorney General, the Attorney General's comments were something else over the situation. So my quick question to you is, where did you stand, or where do you stand in all of this?
It's an international embarrassment. We put out a press statement as a coalition to condemn it. It's an embarrassment, not just, I think not just on Nigeria, but Africa. That children can be arraigned. And the Attorney General, who is supposed to be the symbol of law, law enforcement in the country, is, condoning that kind of acts. And he said that the children were freed as a goodwill from the president, that they can be arraigned. I mean, they cannot be arraigned. Even children in conflict with the law who have committed a crime, and in that instance they have not committed a crime, protesting is guaranteed in our constitution. Yes. But if children who have even committed a crime, call them children in conflict with the law, they have special juvenile court where they can be tried. You don't bring them to an adult court. So it's just a shame on them.
Put them in an adult prison.
Yes, put them in an adult prison. And you know, those children, when they came out, they were like people that came in from Nazi-era concentration camp because they were so malnourished. So what the president, because of the outrage, what the presidency has done so far is like a PR, trying to manage crisis management tactics and all of that. But at the end of the day, they are indicted and they should be ashamed of themselves. And normally, they should have a probe. There should be a probe to know who and who was involved in the arrest and detention and the arraignment of those minors.
Betty, as we wrap up now because of time, just one final question. We can look at all of this and we see that the issues are enormous. I don't know how people would feel listening to all of this, from the health issues to the education issues to the security issues to even, as you said, Nigeria not being a child-friendly country. And a lot of people will disagree with you, given the number of children we like to have in this country. But it's not just about the number. It's about the quality of life that we assure these children having. What are the mechanisms that we need to be putting in place to ensure accountability for protecting children's rights in Nigeria? How do we make sure that government doesn't just sign policies? You just don't have a Child Rights Act of 2003 that probably by now should need some adjustment and amendment. You don't sign on to the African Children's Charter. You don't sign up to these international conventions, and then it's a pretty signing ceremony and it ends there. In terms of making sure that it's not just a commitment, but we're actively implementing things that change the lives of Nigerian children for the better. So
the most popular child's rights act in the world is the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, 1989. And the key word there is whatever is done should be done in the interest of children. We have to analyze every action and make sure it favors children. So we have to start with that. For instance, our organization, like I said, work with children, young people, families in informal communities. And then in Lagos, of course, you have these routine, repeated issues of demolition. And in the course of that, children have died. Children have been uprooted from their homes. Children have been uprooted from school. What conscious step did Lagos State government take to work within the ambit of the law to ensure that whatever demolitions they carry out, whatever action is done in the interest of children, to ensure that those children stay in school? But there is blatant disregard for that aspect of the law. So we have to start with that. And I believe that as media people, as NGOs, we just have to be very, very objective, very focused and truthful to ensure that we hold government accountable. Because led for government, they're not interested in anybody, including children. So we have to continue holding them accountable because they've signed those conventions, they've signed those acts, they have a responsibility to implement them, to enforce them, and especially a key word to ensure that everything is done in the interest of the child. Because if we don't care for the children, we don't groom them to be responsible adults, we don't empower them with the needed resources, what future are we looking up to as a nation? Then we have no future. Because even the adults of today are dysfunctional. At least we should make provision to ensure that the future is
the next generation learns from our dysfunction.
All right, Betty Abah, women and child rights advocate, and of course, thank you so much for discussing this with us. She is the founder of See Hope Nigeria. It's been a very insightful, eye-opening conversation. I don't think that the average Nigerian even knows that the government should regard children because they don't. And it's been an ongoing conversation for a long time. But thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.